are rolling. Start the recording here. Make sure you guys can see me. All right, let's pull up the chat window. Hello, Luke. How are you doing? It's good to be back. Hopefully we won't have any more. Hello, Luke. How are you doing? Technology problems. Back. Hopefully we won't have any more. Hello, Luke. How are you doing? Good. Technology problems. You're looping. Okay. It shouldn't be looping anymore. We should be fine. Literally right after I said, we're not going to have any more technology problems. We are about to jump in here. I just have to get the chat window pulled up so I can actually see what you guys are saying. There you go. Yay! I can see the chat. Making progress. Okay, so welcome everybody to True Crime Reacts with Hope. The first case we're going to be looking at today is State v. Groves. We went in a little bit yesterday, but technology doesn't like me very much. So we are redoing it. I also did some extra research and looked into the appeals that they tried to make. And it's just going to be a lot more organized overall. So we are going to jump into the first testimony. We are watching Jessica Groves' testimony first. That is the mom in this case. A little overview of what's happening here. Jessica Groves and Daniel Groves are being accused of murder of their 2-month-old baby. And we're going to jump into the first testimony here because it's fascinating and it cracks me up. Right here. All
right. Jessica Groves. The injuries that Dylan sustained happened on what date?
March 27th.
Dylan died on what date?
March 28th.
As she previously testified, Patricia Kraft said that she had looked at Dylan. Did she do anything else?
Objection. Leading.
Your Honor, did Patricia Kraft do anything else to examine Dylan?
A little side note here. Patricia Kraft, the woman that they just mentioned, she was the caseworker. And so they just gave us 2 dates, right? They gave us the 27th of March, which was the date that he sustained injuries. The 28th is when he actually died. On the 28th, that caseworker that was mentioned, Patricia Kraft, she was there hours before the baby died. And she didn't do anything to examine him, to check his skin or anything, which is completely unacceptable and needs to be looked into. And I will get more into that later on because I could rant about it all day.
Where did you take Dylan after he died?
He was at our house for a couple days.
And then where did you take him?
To the well.
Did you murder Dylan Gross? Did you murder Dylan Gross?
Not intentionally.
No further questions.
Not intentionally. Yes, I murdered my child on accident. And you'll understand my reaction to that the further into this case that we get, because there's no way that this was an accident, and the way that that defense attorney right there tries to justify it in the closing statement is just ridiculous. Okay. The part that we're going into now is where our our prosecutor, she's great. She might be a little aggressive. I call it passionate. I think she's great. She's gonna be cross-examining Jessica now.
Bar.
Thank you.
Probably.
Tell the jury how you killed this baby.
It was an accident.
Not your excuse. How did you murder this baby? How did you cause these injuries?
Right out of the gate, she's going for the jugular.
I have sit here and admitted
Answer the question, please. How did you cause these injuries?
it was an accident.
Not your excuse for what happened. How did you cause these injuries? How did you cause those rib fractures?
By dropping him.
By dropping him. How did you cause that first 2-inch skull fracture?
I don't remember.
How did you cause that 1-inch skull fracture?
It had to be from dropping him.
How did you cause that complete upper arm fracture?
Nothing that I ever did was intentional.
Okay, we're
Or
gonna
visit protectmybudget.com for a free, no-obligation quote. Call now.
The last thing that should stand between you and your next big idea is code. So Webflow.
Okay, we're gonna pause it right there, and I guess we ran into 2 ads, so I'll take us back to where we were. Not intentionally, one, cracks me up because of the injuries that this baby sustained. And it's ridiculous, and I'm gonna read you the list of injuries that this baby had right now. Oh goodness. What did it just do? Okay, we're fine. Good. We're rolling with technical difficulties. Just to make you guys aware, I just lost the comments part. I'm gonna pull it up in a second as I let a video run. But the injuries that baby Dylan sustained, and she's saying came from a fall, or her dropping him, were multiple skull fractures that did not occur at the same time. Some of them were healing. Bruises on the right side of the chest and left leg. A large laceration on the left arm. Fractures of the left humerus. Fractures of the left radius and ulna. Fractures of the left tibia. And on the 6th and 7th rib, old healing fractures from... It had to have been a couple weeks to a month, maybe 3 months prior to them x-raying the baby in June, when they discovered his body, in order for there to be any sort of healing, especially in a baby. So those are the injuries that she's sitting here saying came from her dropping the baby, which is... absolutely not accurate at all, because later on we won't listen to Dr. Hudson's testimony because we have a lot to go through. But Dr. Hudson testified that in his 30 years of experience, he had never seen a 2 to 3 month old baby fracture his own skull, rib, arms, or legs, especially to the extent that baby Dylan was injured when they found his body. They're sitting here trying to justify murder and killing this baby. It's just ridiculous to me. And it's not only just because I am somebody who is very protective over children. Just, you can call it a personality trait, if you will. But I pride myself on standing up for those who can't speak for themselves. This 2-month-old baby could not speak for himself. So we're going to go on in her testimony and watch her just... She's about to go off the deep end, y'all.
Skull fracture.
It had to be from dropping him.
How did you cause that complete upper arm fracture?
Nothing that I ever did was intentional.
I'm not asking for your excuse. How did you cause that complete upper arm fracture? Tell the jury.
I have to live with this for the rest of my
Answer the question.
life.
How did you cause that complete...
You have devoured my family.
Ms. Groves, you answer the questions that are asked of you. You understand?
I have to interject my own comment here. She's saying, you've devoured my family. She killed her family. So who's doing their job here and who is off their rocker? I mean, it really is that simple here.
I've admitted to my guilt.
How did you...
And I have to live without my children. I'm done talking to you.
You are talking to me because you're sitting on the witness stand. Tell them how you caused that injury. Judge, I ask you to instruct the witness to answer the question.
Ms. Groves, by testifying, you're subject to cross-examination. You have to answer the questions on cross-examination.
Now, this is actually one of the things that she said in her appeal as a reason for it. She does not believe that her defense attorneys prepped her enough for these basic questions. And so that's what she's trying to use as one of the 3 reasons why her appeal should be granted. Which is, like, not accurate at all. She's just bonkers. So, let's go ahead.
Examination that are relevant to these proceedings. This question is a relevant question. You will answer the question at this time.
Honestly, I think she just cries for the next 10 minutes, so we're gonna skip through that, because I don't feel like watching a horrible drama class today.
The last thing that should stand between you and your next big idea is code. So Webflow lets you...
Back in session, let's get you in.
While we're paused here, actually, I'm gonna try and get my chat back, so just bear with me for one moment. There might be like an echo in audio temporarily, so just... Okay, it really does not want me to have chat, so I'll try and deal with that later.
Cross-examination of the defendant Jessica Groves in this matter. Ms. Hutchinson, you may inquire of the witness.
Tell the jury how you caused that complete upper arm fracture.
I don't remember.
You don't remember?
No, I don't.
You remember the day you said the injuries were caused on the 27th. You died on the 28th, so you remember all that detail. But you don't remember how you caused that upper arm fracture.
No, I don't.
Tell the jury why you wrote on your calendar on April 24th, worst day ever when Daniel was taken, but there was no entry about the worst day ever when you killed that baby.
I didn't kill my baby. It
You
was
didn't?
an accident.
How did you cause those injuries?
I don't remember.
Then how do you remember it was an accident?
Because I would never hurt my children intentionally. Never.
How did you cause those injuries?
I don't remember. I done told you that. And the worst.
I'm sorry. No matter what mental state I may have been in, if I was in her position, and she'll later be like, I was on drugs, my mind was cloudy, I wasn't thinking straight. I think I'd remember killing somebody. But I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm, totally placing more weight on my own memory than I should.
Day ever. The day that I lost my last child. Both of my children.
Look at this photograph, Jessica Groves. How do you not remember that? Tell the jury how it's possible that you would not remember doing that, if in fact you did it. Ma'am, tell the jury how you would not remember that.
Because my mind wasn't clear.
Why?
Because of drugs.
Are you telling this jury that all of these injuries occurred at one time? In one incident?
No,
How many times did you attack baby Dylan?
I never attacked him.
Then how many?
That is also incorrect. Her husband, Daniel Groves, told Detective Conkle, we're also not going to have time to look at his testimony, but I do have court documents and transcripts here, so I'm going to read it straight from here. Groves did admit, however, that he told Detective Conkle that he had seen the appellant, Jessica Groves, hit him probably 4 times, and this is direct quote here, so it's obviously going to be just disjointed, because he wouldn't stop crying and because she was so agitated and aggravated, and if I had brought her cocaine, she wouldn't be that way. Groves also admitted he told Conkle that one time he saw her hold him by the arms, below his arms, underneath his ribs, and shake him violently. But she never attacked her kids, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know what dictionary she's using, but in my mind, that's attacking a child. We're going to carry on. We're going to go ahead and we're going to jump a little bit further ahead. So I believe in this clip, she tells everybody why she concealed the body the way she did. And after we listen to this clip, we're actually going to go and listen to the pathologist, Dr. Brown, describe the concealment and the condition of baby Dylan.
Oh,
Why didn't you tell your sister Stacy Hall what the truth was? You told her this had nothing to do with drugs. I swear, nothing, Stacy. I would tell you.
me and Stacy did not grow up together. Me and Stacy has not had a lot of communication over my 40
Ma'am, why didn't you
years.
tell Stacy the truth? That's the question.
Why would I?
Why wouldn't you?
I've never had any family support over my 40 years.
And why didn't you tell Stacy the truth?
Why would I?
Don't ask me questions.
Me and her's
Answer the
not
question.
that close. She is a half sister
Okay.
that we have never had that close relationship.
I'm sorry, I don't feel bad for her, and I feel like she's trying to get us to be like, oh, poor her, she had a, rough family dynamic or whatever, and it's not a reason to lie to somebody. To the extreme level of, oh, I'm not going to tell her what really happened to my kid. I'm just going to tell her the Child Protective Services picked up the baby, and then tell Child Services that my baby is at an uncle's house that nobody even knows existed because he doesn't exist. No, that doesn't come from a screwy family dynamic. That comes from a screwy mental state.
So you lied to her.
Yes, I did.
And you lied to your son.
Yes, I did.
And you lied to Detective Conkle.
Yes, I did.
But you want this jury to believe you just don't remember and you're not lying to them. Look at these ladies and gentlemen and tell them.
She is not a credible witness, everybody. That was not obvious.
Died.
Either.
Don't quite remember it all.
You don't remember that either.
I know it happened. I remember bits and
This is talking about the concealment process.
pieces, but no, I don't remember. Because when he died, part of me died. And I've just been...
You killed him! No! That's your own fault that a part of you died. You killed your baby. Sorry.
on autopilot.
Man, look at this picture. I don't...
The exhibit number was that?
45, Your Honor.
Don't pay full price on Apple when you can do this instead.
I can't with this woman. I have like 0% sympathy for her. Okay, so this is the screen grab here that we're seeing of everything that he was concealed in, laid out. And so I'm going to describe for you all what exactly all of that is. So when Daniel and Jessica Groves dropped baby Dylan into the well, they put him into 2 milk crates. These 2 right here. I thought it was behind me. And zip tied them together with 12 zip ties, put a large, thick chain around the outside with 3 padlocks and 8 metal wires, keeping that milk, those 2 milk crates together. And then on the inside, they found 18 large rocks to weigh it down when it was in the well. And Dylan had been wrapped in multiple layers of plastic, and around all of this plastic is an iron anchor type device. That's what we see, and that's kind of red right there in the picture. And he was wrapped in multiple layers of plastic and duct tape. That sounds like a heck of a lot of planning to me. That doesn't seem like, oh, we were panicking and we didn't know what to do and, we thought we were going to get in trouble. When people dispose of a body and they're in a panic, they throw them in a garbage bag and they throw them in a lake or something. This was thought out, this was planned, and her reason for it is just absolutely disgusting.
Outside, I guess.
You guess. Now I'm asking you for real. Where'd you get all this stuff?
I sure didn't get it out from under the kitchen sink.
Are you gonna answer the question?
Outside.
You don't remember this chain, those 6 layers of plastic and duct tape, 3 padlocks, 12 zip ties, 8 wire ties, 18 rocks? You don't remember that?
Not in detail, no I don't.
That's not a whole heck of a lot of cleaning.
No.
Why would you do that if you didn't murder this baby on purpose?
Because I was scared.
Scared of what?
Losing everything.
Now why are you here telling this jury the story today?
Objection. She needs to allow her time to answer the question.
She's not answering the question.
She hasn't done it over time.
Both rules, just let's just make sure you don't talk over each other.
Yes, Your Honor.
That's your next question.
I want you to explain to the jury this process up here.
I can't.
Why?
Because I don't recall.
Who drove baby Dylan out to that well?
We both did.
Tell the jury how that happened and what you did.
We took him out to the well
How'd you get there?
on the 4-wheeler.
And then what?
We put him in the well, and we sit in the field and cried.
Why is it that when we watch this video of you and your husband at the sheriff's office, there's not all this crying? I'm so worried about the dogs. Is that what you said?
I was in shock. I've been in shock.
Let's clear a little something up, okay? I'm not discounting that people can be in shock, or especially after a fairly traumatic event. And I mean, this is an extremely traumatic event. Killing your kid, I'm sure is really traumatic for you. Not as traumatic as the kid who did nothing wrong to you. But I'm sure that she had, some trauma responses and she was in shock. I'm not doubting that. However, after she murdered her baby, March 28th, where he died from the injuries that she had given him the day prior, that baby was sitting in that house for multiple days before they disposed of him in a 30 to 40 foot well in milk crates. They didn't find his body until 2 months later in June. So that body had been decaying. That's why they can't pinpoint a specific cause of death, like if it was bleeding out or something like that. And the cause of death that they ended up giving it was cause of death is homicidal violence of an undetermined etiology. So the shock part is a little bit less believable when it was almost 2 to 3 months prior, or after the fact, I mean. And you're worried about your dogs? I'm in disbelief still, and I've seen this video a lot of times.
I've never got a chance to grieve the death of my baby.
You murdered him.
I can have this one.
Okay, that is the last part of her cross-examination that we are going to be looking at today. Her reasoning for the concealment process and all of that was so that she could go back and get him. And the only thing that I could think of was, why on earth would you want to go back and get a body after an undetermined amount of time, because she had no idea when they were going to be able to go back and get him. Like, that makes no sense. So you're going to hold a funeral with all of his family members, his, daycare friends. Like, no. That's just disturbing if you were going to go back and get him. But anyway, we're going to move on to Dr. Brown's testimony here. And she's going to describe the crate, she's going to describe the injuries, and all that stuff. So let's jump in.
Let me ask you, Dr. Brown, to explain to the jury.
After this ad.
I decided to make it my personal mission to get revenge on this scammer, and now, a few months later, I have complete access to his laptop, including his web.
What you received and how you received it. Just the initial package.
So we received Dylan's body in
This photo behind me is a closer look at the milk crates that he was contained in, and you can see right there, you can see those metal wires tied around the handles there. The chain is going across right here, and you have 1 and 2 of the padlocks that were mentioned.
two milk crates that were put together, the open end put together, so open end to open end, and these milk crates were secured together by a chain with multiple padlocks, metal wires, and zip ties.
Let me hand you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 37 through 44 for identification.
Alright, they're gonna go through some trial photos. Thankfully, we never get to see the actual autopsy photos. I would cry. So, we're gonna jump to our next little bit here.
In order to see what is inside of this structure, we proceeded to open the top by cutting the portion of the milk crates and sort of opening it up. And so that's what we're doing here in this picture, so that you can see that there is this structure here, which contains Dylan's body. Also these large rocks, and then in addition to that, there is this iron anchor type device that is over the top of his body.
In response to Luke's comment, I can't imagine how horrific it was either. I mean, we have seen actual autopsies of people who've been sitting in water like this baby was, but seeing it in a baby, I fell apart. I don't know how this pathologist does it. I really don't, because, I mean, she's probably, this sounds horrible, but she's probably used to it, because that's her job. I mean, as a doctor, you get used to seeing blood from surgeries, or just bodily fluids and all that stuff. Like, you get used to it if that's what your job is. But I personally, I could never get used to seeing a baby dead in any condition.
You remove that whole package out of the milk crates?
Yes.
Okay. You continue to take photographs step by step of what you're seeing there?
Yes.
Why do you do that?
To demonstrate the extent to which his body is concealed.
This time I would ask the witness to identify State's Exhibit 46 through 55. The rest you would
Jump to our next part.
Have numerous layers of plastic and duct tape.
Processing time series.
We have another ad. I'll take this second to just respond to a comment. Luke, I agree. It does take a special person. They are definitely necessary because without her, to be completely honest, I don't think this baby would have gotten justice. So it's definitely a needed position, but I can't even imagine. I would go home and I would just cry, honestly. I don't think I'd be able to handle it.
Body.
So State's Exhibit 48 is mostly silver duct tape?
Yes, over the top of plastic.
State's Exhibit 49.
So now we begin to open this plastic, and we do this kind of layer by layer. And
look at this woman. I swear, this is her default position, and I don't want to seem petty, but I like reading people's body language, okay? Do I look innocent enough? Like, come on. Seriously. Look up. Like, try to portray yourself as somebody that's even likable. Because she's sitting there, and all I can think of is, wow, she's being so manipulative to everybody in the courtroom, and I just hope the jury isn't buying it. Which they didn't, because she got life in prison plus 37 years. But we'll get to that later. I don't want to spoil everything.
find 6 different plastic items that are wrapped around his body and secured with duct tape, and the next one wrapped around his body and secured with duct tape over and over and over again. And so in these photographs, we have cut each layer, layer by layer, we have cut this open and begun to unwrap the structure, basically.
Okay, and using duct tape isn't one of the easiest things in the world if your hands are shaking and you're nervous and you're not clearly in your mind like she said that she was. I mean, and I'm sorry, again, this might seem petty, but she doesn't look strong. But she's claiming that her husband helped her do this. So it would be more understandable if both of them did it. But the thought process that had to go into it and the effort that had to go into concealing the baby this way is just, oh my gosh. It boggles my mind that people are like this today.
Start to subside, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And once again, there may not have been any outward signs of that type of trauma, correct?
On the skin.
Thank you. In regards to that fracture that had begun to heal on the top of his skull, and I believe it's on the right side, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Did that indicate that there was any type of crushing injury to the skull?
Well, it's some kind of blunt force trauma.
Right. Could have been caused by a fall?
Hitting his, either an object or something hitting his head, or his head hitting an object of some sort.
So whether something either landed on him or he landed on something, that's what...
I don't like the way that she worded that. Because if you say landed like that, I mean, you could say landed a blow and it still mean hit. But I feel like she's trying to twist it ever so slightly. And this isn't the first time that she's done this in, and by she, I mean this defense attorney. When she was asking Daniel Jr., because the Groves did have a second son, he was 14, he came in and testified against them. And she did this as well. She was like, the bruising, because one of the times that Daniel Jr. saw bruising and injuries on baby Dylan was he saw this bruise on the top of his head, and it was covering like almost his entire head where hair would be, almost his entire scalp. And she kept referring to it as, a little bit bruised, and he's like, no, it was the whole head. She must have done that like 3 or 4 times, and he was like, no, it was the whole head, like every single time. And like, I understand that that's defense attorney's job. They're supposed to defend their client zealously. But I don't like that they're like slowly trying to slightly twist things, because if you're going to defend your client, do it honestly. And there's so many things in there that prove that bruise was a large portion of his scalp. So the next testimony that we are going to go into is we're actually going to go to Andrea Bowling. And let me explain to you who Mrs. Andrea is here. I feel so bad for this woman. Literally, I watched this testimony earlier today, and I just wanted to go and give her a hug. I just felt so bad. She just needs somebody to go up to her and be like, you know what, it's okay. It's not your fault. You did your best. And my heart just goes out to her. And she's a solid Christian woman, too. And she, when Daniel Sr. came to get Dylan from her, because she was the foster mom for a period of time after he was born, because he was born with meth, cocaine, fentanyl, morphine, all that fun stuff in his system, because his mother is a hardcore drug addict, and so was his father, but obviously that doesn't really transfer into umbilical cords if you're a man, because only so she had custody over baby Dylan for 2 weeks, I want to say. And she just fell in love with this kid. And this is how you're supposed to treat your babies. This woman had more love in her heart for this child than the actual mother did, and that's sad.
Were you advised of any potential medical condition that Dylan had?
Only women have uteruses.
In this call to Children's Services.
Yes.
What was your understanding of what you might be dealing with?
They told me that he was born with drugs in his system, and that he was withdrawing, and that he was, at that time he was 5 pounds 4 ounces, so he was really tiny. That's basically what they told me.
Okay. So you mentioned you got to the hospital around 6 o'clock?
Yes, around 6:30.
What hospital was that?
I agree.
SOMC.
Okay. And once you got to the hospital, what did you do?
Okay, so went to the nursery there at the hospital, and met with the nurses. They let me in, and then I went through some training on what signs to look for with a baby that's withdrawing, and how to take care of a baby that is,
Basically, what she went into in this little area and a little bit before that we did not watch is they're establishing that she got her certifications, that she was credible, and that she knew what she was doing in terms of taking care of a child that was going through drug withdrawals and the health problems that he had. Because I'm going to read this again from, it's a lovely little court transcript. Dylan sneezed, perspired excessively, had tremors, but otherwise appeared to be very well. Dr. Ali learned about the abnormal newborn 17-hydroxyprogesterone screening that indicated elevated risk for congenital adrenal hyperplasia. but Dylan's care transferred to a different pediatric practice and miscommunication occurred about whether the screening had been repeated. Dr. Ali also testified that although he did not know whether the screening had been repeated, the abnormality would not cause bone fractures, bruising, or swelling of the head. The reason why that was mentioned is because the the defendants in this case were trying to say, and their attorneys were trying to say, that those fractures happened at the hospital, and that the hospital should be sued, not them. It was a whole thing. We do not have time to get into that disaster today. We're just going to focus on the murder today.
Has been born with drugs in his system and you know, for several hours more.
This woman is up there sobbing her eyes out about this kid. And look at her parents. Look at his parents. Stone-faced, not doing anything, not even a tear. They could care less if the kid's dead. They're just sad they're going to prison.
You mentioned before that you were advised that
This is also a prosecutor.
Baby Dylan may have some symptoms associated with drug withdrawal.
Yes.
Okay. Did you observe any of these symptoms while he was in your care?
Yes.
What did you observe?
He had tremors where his arms would shake
Okay.
and his legs would jerk. He had sweats and he liked to be held at all times when he wasn't asleep or in his mama-roo. I was holding him.
See, I have a heart, okay? I do get sad, and it does jerk my heartstrings when I see somebody genuinely crying. When Jessica Groves cries, I just look at her and I'm like, are you auditioning? Are you trying to be the next Amber Heard? Because call yourself Amber Heard on trial, because that's what you look like right now. It's not convincing. I crack myself up.
Was there to pick up Dylan.
When did he arrive?
Okay, so I was there at 9 and he got there about 9:15.
Okay. And how was his demeanor then?
The same. Same as the first time I met him.
Okay. And what happened during that exchange?
He brought in a car seat for Dylan, and I was getting Dylan's belongings together.
What did you do with those belongings?
I gave them to Daniel.
Okay.
I
And-
gave him
Go ahead.
some formula diapers, his blanket, his quilt from the hospital, some pictures. I gave him a Bible.
Okay.
This is a good woman. This is a good-hearted woman that wanted the best for this child. And she had to let this kid go into the custody of known drug users, people that were known to be lying from the beginning. And this is heartbreaking to watch. And this is a huge, huge problem with caseworkers with child custody now. And people should have to be tested for intelligence before they're allowed to have children. Like, seriously. If you're gonna abuse your kid, don't have one. It's called a condom.
Now, I want to hand you what have been marked as State's Exhibits 22 and 23, showing this to opposing counsel.
That is about all that we're gonna watch of Andrea's testimony. Honestly, I wanted to include hers for the sole purpose of showing anybody that's watching that the only option is not killing your child. There are good people in foster care that will care for your children, and just be smart. Don't murder somebody because they won't stop crying. Jeez. If that was a reason, I'd be dead at least once a month. Okay, I'm gonna take a minute while we're paused, and I'm gonna look through the chat. I did pull it up on my phone, so I am able to respond, which makes me really happy. Luke, that's so sweet. Aw. My heart. It is hard, but watching somebody go into a situation where you know that they're going to be loved is one of the biggest blessings that anybody can have, especially if you are a foster care provider and you can do that for somebody. That's one of the biggest blessings that we can have. I have no idea if the attorneys were court appointed or not. This might answer the question. I'm gonna put this on full so you can actually see me. Jessica and Dylan did not have money to pay for their legal fees, so that might answer that there. Also, can you tell me if the live stream is lagging at all? Because it's lagging on my phone, but my phone's also dying, so. Okay, so it's not just me. Honestly, it might be from the storm, because apparently it's raining. So not much I can do there, but hopefully y'all are still enjoying the stream, and it'll be alright. Okay, let's go into, we're gonna go to Mr. Grove's testimony now. And there's a part in here that really cracks me up, and I hope I remembered to get the timestamp for it. I don't believe I did, but that's okay, because I'm going to talk about it anyway. Daniel Groves, when they're talking about when they realized that Jessica was pregnant, they didn't find out until she was 5.5 months along, because she was a fairly heavy woman. And he lost his job early 2018, so, they'd been eating takeout and all this stuff, and they're like, oh, well, we're just putting on weight. Daniel Sr. has the gall to go up to his wife, be like, you've put on a few. Are you pregnant? I was raised that you never go to a woman, be like, are you pregnant? When are you expecting? That's the worst thing that you can say to a woman, because if she's not pregnant, you've just defended somebody on so many levels. It's just not even funny. And then Daniel Jr., his son, apparently did the same thing to find out if she was pregnant in late November. And he was like, you're swelling like you're pregnant. Are you? I know, with her history of, killing children, you'd think she would have gone off. Well, this was prior to her killing her baby, but she always had the temper. And we'll get in a little bit to this here. He has the... Okay, we're going to watch it because I'm going to end up giving this whole thing away and not needing the trial footage.
That Daniel described yesterday, did you notice any other outward signs of bruising or swelling to Dylan?
No, I did not.
Did you in any way cause the death of Dylan?
Absolutely not.
I thought that it was going to be so hard and I wouldn't be able to keep up. Before I started with She Codes, I didn't have any coding experience. I thought it...
Did you observe Jessica in any way cause the death of Dylan?
No, I did not.
Did you suspect any behavior of Jessica that would have resulted in Dylan's death?
No, I did not. She was always a loving, caring mother to Daniel Jr., and I never expected...
No, that is just simply not true. Absolutely not. Because if you guys remember from earlier on in the stream, I mentioned that he told Detective Conkle about 2 instances, just 2 of them. There were more that we didn't get into, but 2 instances where she smacked the baby in the head 4 times because he wouldn't stop crying and she wanted to go snort coke in the bathroom. And then another time where she grabbed the baby underneath his ribs and shook him so violently that it broke ribs. So, sorry, sir, I'm not going to sit here and believe that you had no idea that your wife could do something like this.
anything like this.
Did you actively participate in Dylan's death or observe anyone, including Jessica, cause Dylan's death?
I agree,
No, I did not.
And once again, when did he pass away?
March 28th, 2019, within probably a couple hours after the social worker or the CPS worker was there.
So why did you tell Jody Conkle that it was a day
Oh,
or two
thank
after
you.
the
I forgot to switch it
caseworker was
back.
there?
Because at the time, I'd been in such grief and shock and being sick, because I did use some drugs after my last son was taken. I just went through the experience of losing my baby.
So what we're seeing here, and I mean, I think most of the people that are watching right now are in law school, but what he's doing here is he's admitting to these little things to try and get the jury to believe him and be like, oh, well, he's a credible source, so that when he's like, well, I didn't actually participate in killing the baby, they're more likely to believe him and, you know, be nice to him. That's not gonna happen here. Justice will be served, ladies and gentlemen, just you wait.
And losing my older son, and I fell to drugs, I admit that. I wasn't even sure of the date that the CPS worker was there, and that's why I told Ms. Conkle that it was the 28th, 29th, 30th, somewhere right in there. I wasn't for sure, what date it was at the time.
You had a landmark for the day, Woodland Services worker
Yeah,
being
yeah.
there, but you weren't exactly sure what the date was.
Yeah, I just wasn't for sure.
Raise your question.
Did you use Patricia Kraft being there as the landmark for the date of Dylan's death?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Was that...
So this is what I started saying earlier and then said that we would get to later about the caseworker. Okay? This woman knew that they were aggressive drug users in the past, that the baby was born with drugs in his system and all this, and she didn't think to check the baby's body. I've read cases similar to this one where the baby died of a meth overdose, of a cocaine overdose, because they injected the baby. So why aren't caseworkers doing their job efficiently and this, if the caseworker had done her job properly and examined the baby when she got there, Dylan could still be alive today. And she didn't. She failed.
That the best day you could reference it to?
Yes,
The same.
When you were talking to Jody Conkle, were you doing your best to give her a frame of reference of time?
Objection, Your Honor. Repeat your questions, Ms. Scott. Open to the questions.
Please describe for the court the process of giving Jody.
What do you mean? What do you mean? Why? Can y'all still see me? Okay, you can still, okay, you can hear me. Okay, cool. My mom said that I went offline, so I got worried. So we're gonna keep going here. Just wanted to make sure that everybody could still see me.
So when were you actually clean?
Yes, I was.
So when did? So what happened after you discovered Dylan had passed away?
Well, I had came into the living room and found him in his pack and play where he laid out during the daytime. I found him there deceased. And I went into total shock, grief, of course.
How did Jessica behave towards you after you, strike that, Your Honor, I want to rephrase. Was Jessica in the room with you when you discovered that Dylan had passed away?
When I first walked in there, she was not, but she had followed me in within just probably a minute.
So what was Jessica's reaction?
She was very upset, of course, was in shock too. She seemed somewhat nervous and scared, and started telling me that, if they would be blaming it on me and us, and because of being involved in CPS.
What was her demeanor and her behavior like towards you?
She was very radical, very forthcoming.
So this man goes on and on and on and on about how he was intimidated by her and, he was scared. All this stuff. Dude, you are a full-on, couple inches taller than her. You're also a man. Grow a pair. And educate yourself, because it wouldn't... Yes, it would have fallen on you as one of, the person that had sole custody at that period of time. But the murder wouldn't have gone on you too. And honestly, the responsibility to educate yourself on these things and the law and anything falls on you. It falls on the person. That's part of why I'm doing this channel. Because I want to look at this stuff. I want to help people understand. I want to look at scripture and be able to bring it into this. And, 1 Corinthians, do everything in love. And I am definitely doing this in love. And I'm probably going to get whiplash or backlash from people saying that I'm being too aggressive and I should be nicer. Sorry, I'm not going to sit here and be nice to murderers. And one of the saddest things is that I realized when I was prepping to do this video today was there are people that believe that this is okay. They would classify this as after-birth abortion. How disgusting is that? That there are people on this earth that believe that what these two people did to this baby, I don't care if he didn't actually murder the baby. He hid it. He was accomplice to it. He takes responsibility. He was also the father. He saw so many things of this woman abusing their baby, and he let it happen. There were preventatory things that he could have done to keep this from happening, and he didn't do it. So yes, he does get responsibility in this. But there are people in this world that believe that what these two parents did is justified because they would classify it as post-birth abortion, which is no, that's a pretty label to slap on there for murder. That's a human life. Exactly, Luke. He is spineless. Yes, he seems a bit more credible and a bit more sympathetic, a bit more genuine, if you will, because I don't believe that he actually murdered the baby. What I'm questioning with him is that there's no way that he didn't know that she could do it, that she had the capacity to treat a child like that. When he raised Daniel Jr. for 14 years and he never sustained any of those because she actually kept her nose out of the snow long enough to raise her kid. He had evidence, experience raising his child and knowing what injuries are normal. He grew up. Obviously, he was a little boy once. He had experience to know what a normal amount of injuries was for a boy just being a boy. This, what they did to him, is not a normal level of injury. That's called child abuse. Yes, if you're going to Liberty Law and you believe that, you should leave. You're in the wrong place. Because people aren't gonna shut up about it. People need to speak up about it. So if you're tired of hearing about it, you gotta leave. That's what I'm gonna tell people on this channel. If you don't want to hear me bring the gospel into here and try and share Christ through reviewing these cases, don't watch it then. Because I'm not gonna stop sharing my faith in whatever capacity I can on my channel. I'm not going to stop sharing my opinion. I am for sure not gonna keep my mouth shut out of fear of offending people, because Jesus didn't do that. Jesus did not sit there on top of the mount and be like, oh, well, I shouldn't say this because I'm gonna offend little liberal snowflakes. No, he did not. So, anyway, we're gonna carry on because I just got into a rant. We're gonna go on to the next part here. Man, I crack myself up sometimes.
Correct.
Look, less than 20 of these candles per day sold at $15 a piece could earn you 6 figures from home. And I want to...
And you want this jury to believe that you thought the baby just died?
Yes, I thought he did just die. I had seen no more outbursts from her.
That you're not responsible for this baby's death?
No, I'm not responsible. Did I make mistakes? Absolutely.
I didn't ask you a question. So, do you understand blunt force trauma?
Yes.
All right, tell me, what's blunt force trauma?
Getting struck.
I love the level of sass that comes from our two prosecutors. It's amazing because it's like, do you know what blunt force trauma is? Which, like, it's funny being somebody who is educated, watching somebody who is obviously not educated be like, well, yes, it's being hit with something. Because obviously he didn't understand it well enough to be able to keep his wife from doing it to his 2-month-old kid. Which is obviously, that's common sense for people here. It really is. Apparently not to these people. Anyway, we will continue.
By something very hard.
Do you understand that the baby's bones aren't brittle, that they're rubbery? It can take a lot more than we think they can.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
So, you deny seeing the blunt force trauma of such a nature that it broke the upper arm bones, the upper arm bone, the lower arm bones, and the leg of your baby boy.
Yes, I never saw nothing that
Where
would
were
cause
you?
that.
Where were you?
I was in the home.
You were in the home?
I mean, I didn't stay with him 24/7. I mean,
Well, who did then? If you weren't there, who was there?
well, I mean, there was times when I would go into another room, of course.
You go in another room, did you hear your baby screaming in pain?
No, I did not.
Did you hear multiple...
So at this point, he was not employed, I don't believe, and so he was very rarely out of the home. If he was working, it was from home, because this was like start of COVID stuff here. Honestly, I don't know if they got together out of love. I don't know. I think that she found somebody who was weak and had no spine and was like, well, nobody else is going to love me because I'm a horrible woman. So let me just latch on to this. I also think they were like, oh, we both do cocaine. Let's get married, because that's the logical conclusion.
Thumps?
No, I did not.
You did tell about one thump you heard when she was back in the bedroom with you.
Yeah, I said
right?
I heard a thump, and she had told me that her purse or something fell off the bed.
Oh, so...
And he was laying there fine, so I would have no reason to think anything else was wrong.
All right, well, that's an occasion where she wasn't being supervised with the baby, was she?
I went to the bathroom. Was I supposed to take the baby to the bathroom with me, too?
Yes. And here's why. If you are married to a woman who has already exhibited violence towards your 2-month-old baby, and you also know that she has a violent drug problem, and you can't even guarantee that she's been going to rehab since February, why on earth would you leave her alone with your kid? Again, what is common sense to us here obviously is not common sense to the people that are going to jail for the rest of their life. So,
Wife's on drugs, correct?
And at the time, I did not think she was, no.
Oh.
She was going to treatment. I thought she was doing
She
better.
had been to treatment since February 8th. Are you telling this court you didn't know that?
I did not. I
Or
knew
did you
that.
bury your head in the sand?
for him, as somebody who, I mean, he testified to the fact that he fell to drugs and things like that, and before the baby was born, he was also a user. As somebody who is as experienced as he says he is with drugs, you would think that he would be able to spot when his wife was doped. Again, common sense.
I did not know that she had missed all those appointments. No, I did not.
So you didn't know she was back on drugs?
No, I did not.
You did know she had some violent tendencies, right?
I knew she had some, yes.
Yeah, she threatened you during the course of your marriage, didn't she?
Yeah, not violently.
Okay, I want you guys to put in the comments what exactly is a non-violent threat from a woman who's a, again, violent drug abuser and had physically harmed her kid. Luke, I love that list. I'm gonna put that on my fridge. That's a great list of questions.
So then you're asking me a question of whether you should have taken the baby to the bathroom or not with you. What do you think?
No, I don't think I should have, no. I mean, if the baby was laying there sleeping, why would I take him to the bathroom with me?
So do you think that all these injuries, from your knowledge of being a father, you have an older son who's 14, correct?
Correct.
Did you ever get hurt growing up?
Yes, minor injuries.
Minor injuries from what?
From just being a boy and playing
Being a boy.
outside.
Falling?
Mm-hmm.
Jumping out trees? Yes?
He never had no injuries falling out of a tree, no, but
Wreck a bicycle? What kind of injuries did he get?
I just, common injuries from a boy, got fingers smashed, stuff like that. He never really had no major injuries.
So from your experience, your common experience as a father with a 14-year-old son, do you honestly want this jury to believe that there was a drop of the baby that caused all these injuries?
Do I believe that a drop of the injury caused these baby? I'm not aware of what caused these injuries. So
Not aware. But you would acknowledge that something horribly violent happened to your son to break all those bones.
Obviously.
Where were you when this happened?
I had to be around the home.
Where were you when your son was dying?
Excuse me?
Where were you when your son was dying?
I had to be in the home or outside the home.
I just can't even comprehend being in the same house as this child and not hearing them cry and sob as their ribs are broken, their arm is slashed, their arm is broken, and their ribs, their skull. I cannot imagine being in a house and not hearing that. But I don't know. Maybe he's deaf. Okay, that is all that we are going to be watching of Daniel Groves Sr.'s testimony. We are actually going to start going into the closing statements, and then we're going to watch a little snippet from sentencing that I'm actually very excited to watch because I love justice, and I could not stop myself from laughing at what she said when she stood up at sentencing to speak. I just could not. So, we'll watch that, and then depending on where we're at with time, I'll either read what the sentence was, or we'll actually get into a little bit of him reading the verdict so we can see their reactions. And then we are going to talk about the appeal. So that's the agenda. I do have the moment when the verdict was in, so we will be looking at, I'll make sure that we go and look at their reactions to it. As somebody who loves justice as much as I do, it is so hilarious to me. So, let's go ahead into the prosecution's closing. And we are going to just look at clips because the prosecution's closing was about 25 to 30 minutes. The defense closing for Jessica is really what I want to look at because it is just so absolutely mind-bogglingly stupid that we have to watch it today. Honestly, the closing statement for Jessica, or not for Jessica, for Daniel Groves was not that exciting, so we'll look at a snippet of it, but it's not really what we're going to focus on right now. So let's go ahead and go to the prosecution. This looks good, by the way, this ad here.
Let's begin.
It's come up so much. I love that on this browser, I haven't used this browser before. Almost exclusively, I'm getting Christian ads. And it's not like a Christian browsing thing like DuckDuckGo or something. It's called Opera, and it's actually for gaming, but I would say 85% of the ads that I've been getting are Christian.
Entire community.
Whoops, we're a little bit. I forgot to take it to the beginning. Oh wait, this is sentencing. I put my videos in the wrong order. Whoops. Rebuttal. Oh my goodness, I really did not put these in the correct order. I apologize. You know what? We were going super smooth. It was, due for a little bump in the road. So let me just. Oh my goodness, that's searching my channel. Whoops. Let's just go. I apologize. This was not supposed to happen. Here it is.
To commit offenses.
Yes, that is the Hillsdale
Again,
College Genesis thing.
If something I say differs from something Your Honor says, you are to follow his instructions. So let's talk about the charges and the evidence that you've heard this week. Count 1 again is aggravated murder. The state of Ohio must prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendants did or were complicit to purposely. I'm going to go through some of these individually. Purposely, I submit to you, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, that multiple rib fractures are purposeful injuries. Those aren't accidental. I submit to you that multiple skull fractures that happened at different times, and even at a time different than the rib fractures, are purposeful. I submit to you that the multiple complete arm...
See, at that, I'm like, you'd think that you wouldn't have to make it clear about it. But, I mean, she is doing her job here as... You're supposed to lay it out. Even as obvious as it may seem, you need to lay everything out in front of a jury so that they understand. And not as if they need more help or that they're not smart, but it's always helpful to kind of wrap things up in a nice little bow, and that's what closing statements are for.
Arm fractures and leg fractures are purposeful. Caused the death of baby Dylan. Can I say what mechanism was used to cause baby Dylan's injuries? No. And you heard defendant Jessica Gross, she custody.
We're getting an ad.
Did they know they didn't have the privilege to do what they...
This is Webflow Interactions, the only tool that brings all the animation power of CSS and JavaScript.
were doing? Or were they reckless in that regard? Did they keep or harbor baby Dylan from the custodian, from Children's Services? And did that result in harm to physical harm to baby Dylan? Count 7, gross abuse of a corpse. Treating baby Dylan's body in a way that would outrage reasonable community sensibilities. These defendants dumped him in a dark 30-foot well of water and left him there for months. And I submit to you, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, that had Detective Conkle not had the training and experience to put them in a room together and listen to what they were saying, we would have never found baby Dylan's body. You listen to the whispering. If they find his body, we're effed.
Okay. So they put him in a room, like an interrogation room together, and they were whispering this. I want to know, so put in the comments, if you were in an interrogation room, would you really believe that you weren't being recorded? Because I'm fairly certain most of the time you're being recorded in there, even when there's nobody in there with you. So they're just really not smart. It's like they thought through elaborate plans to conceal their baby, but then they didn't think through the stuff that's literally common sense. So... God must love stupid people because he made a lot of them.
A 30-foot well were suddenly so caring that they wanted to hold baby Dylan every time Patricia Kraft was there. Do you suppose that's so she wouldn't touch him and figure out he had injuries?
Get him! Look at that sass.
You heard the phone call with her sister. Together, for better or worse, till death do us part.
I submit to you, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, that's the way it's been from the time that baby was born to right here this week. Against their own children. You were told at the beginning of this, Jessica Groves is going to take responsibility. Did she take responsibility when she spoke with Detective Conkle? She take responsibility when she spoke to her sister? Did she take responsibility in here this morning when she spoke to you? She can't remember what happened, but she does remember it was an accident. Is that taking responsibility for these injuries? You're expected to believe defendant Daniel Groves, everything he said in here. The same guy who, after they say the baby was dead, tells Children's Services in a text message he's growing like a weed. You were told that Daniel Groves panicked and dumped baby Dylan in a 30-foot well. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, does this look like panic to you? Does it?
Woo!
A
She
chain,
brought out the
3
box,
padlocks,
y'all.
12 zip ties, 8 wire ties, 18 rocks, 6 layers of plastic and duct tape. Does this look like panic? I submit to you it looks like extreme planning. They want you to believe they're not complicit to their baby's murder. But this is what they chose for a coffin and his burial? This?
And my heart kind of broke at that moment because she is a mom. And you can hear her voice crack. My heart.
And then they dumped him in a well.
Hold on. We gotta go back. Look at their faces right now. How can they have those faces? How can they be so straight-faced? When they pull... I don't understand their lack of response to these kinds of things. I don't even know what I would do in their situation because I'm not as much of a heathen as these people would be. I would never in a million years cross that boundary that was set by God and also set by our criminal justice system. Like, that is such a social line that people do not cross, is murdering somebody. And they did. And I'm like, okay, we're gonna carry on.
And then they dumped him in a well. Proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Guilty on each and every count. Each one of them.
Woo! She was fire, y'all. She was so good. Alright, so now we're gonna go on to the defense closing, which is next. I'm going to try and contain my laughter as we watch this, but I apologize in advance if I just simply cannot. Because it's just wow. I just can't.
The gang leader, formerly known as A-Train, continues to maintain his innocence despite insurmountable evidence against.
And we are not gonna go into the closing statement for Daniel Groves because I do want to leave. We have a lot left to talk about still, and we're creeping up on the time that I'm cutting us off, so.
What did the prosecution want Jessica to do today? What do they want her to do through this whole trial? They want her to take responsibility. Responsibility for putting her...
I think they kind of wish she hadn't killed her kid, but yeah, responsibility's fine.
Her son in this. She's doing that. She's doing that today. She's doing that in front of you. She could have pled out to this indictment. She could have got rid of this case right off the bat. But she didn't. She wanted here today, as I told you in opening statements, as you heard up on the stand, when I asked her, did you murder your son? She said yes. She says she put him in this coffin and placed him in that well. Three of these injuries are healing injuries, and they did happen before March 27th. But the major injuries that caused Dylan's death happened on March 27th. He died on March 28th. You heard her say that. And after that...
Good job. She admitted to killing her kid. Are we supposed to give her a cookie?
This is what they did. She's owning up to that. She was forced to come here to try to save somebody who did not do that, that did not kill Dylan. She's here. She was up on that stand. All that.
In response to Daniel's comment, exactly.
Was not to save herself. All this week is not to save herself. It's to save him. Because she knows the truth and she's told it.
They're trying to paint like an angel halo over her head and all I see are devil horns. So, can't be something you're not, sweet cheeks.
How do we know that this baby died on March 28th? Let me explain some of the testimony. Dr. Hudson said there was two visits. There was one on February 7th where the baby's length was 19.5 inches. There was one a couple of weeks later where he was 20.3 inches. Dr. Brown stood up on the stand and said during the autopsy he was 20.5 inches, 0.2 inches longer than he was on February 21st. We know that Patricia Kraft has testified that he was alive on the 28th, so he must have died that day. Andrea Bowling testified that she wasn't surprised that Patricia Kraft or Children's Services didn't put all notes into the activity logs. You heard Patricia Kraft testify that she didn't pick him up and look at him. She merely glanced at him.
Would you say that was an accident, Daniel? Would you defend stabbing your principal in the eye socket as an accident?
Daniel Jr. himself testified that he hadn't seen Dylan 3 or 4 weeks prior to his removal from the house on April 24th. All that points to that March 28th day, the same day that my client, Jessica Groves, claims that he died. Daniel Groves, prosecution kept saying foolishly unaware. Yes, he was foolishly unaware. She took great care of Daniel Jr. You saw that up on stand.
That's bull. Right here. Right there. Her smacking her kid around. And breaking his ribs, because that's, good parenting. In response to a comment, what I have gathered from what he's trying to do is they're not trying to say that she didn't do it necessarily. What he's trying, in the closing at least, is he's trying to say that she fessed up, and so that should be taken in consideration when they decide her sentence. They're not trying to get her off completely because they know that they can't do that because she flat out admitted to it. There's no way that she couldn't. Now, they tried to plead insanity and couldn't because they didn't have enough proof to prove that she was out of her mind, basically. They couldn't do that. So, he says, that she was forced here. She could have pled out at any time. No, she couldn't have. That's not true at all.
She was a great wife for all these years. Great. She's not using her drug addiction as an excuse, but that she went down that wrong path, which led us.
She used it as an excuse. She said her mind wasn't clear. That's why she couldn't remember wrapping her baby in 6 layers of plastic, stuffing him in a freaking milk crate box. Like, oh my gosh, she's a disgrace to women.
To hear. The coroner herself said that she couldn't tell what the bruising was, whether it was decomposition or bruising. Dr. Hudson testified to the fact that any skull fractures might not be bruising, there might not be bruising or swelling.
But the prosecutors aren't saying anything about the bruises. They're saying things about the fractured bones because there's proof of that. What they're doing here is they're focusing, and what the female defense attorney does is they're trying to focus, and it's a strategy, I recognize that. Focus on everything that the state couldn't answer, but the only reason that they couldn't answer it was because those two put the baby in a well for 2 months, and his body was there was too much decomp at that point. Now they could prove broken bones because the bones hadn't been harmed yet, but the skin, like, obviously they're not gonna sit there and be like, oh well, this blue and purple skin is a bruise, when that's what everybody looks like when they've been sitting in a well for 2 months.
I present to you that the state has not provided enough evidence that Daniel is guilty of the murder. I present to you that they have failed to even give you a date of death. I have given you a date of death from the beginning, because that's the true date of death that my client has testified to.
Honestly, the rest of the closing doesn't get any better. So we're going to skip to the sentencing, and then we'll skip to where they hear the verdict. The sentencing part that we're going to listen to is when she stands up to speak. Oop, I just kicked my leg. I have a lot to say about this. That's why I wanted to leave more time.
It's been shared with a lot of people.
Mr. Stratton, anything you'd like to say on behalf of your client?
Yes, Your Honor. This has been a difficult matter for this entire community. It's been shared with a lot of people. Jessica took responsibility.
I really do feel bad for this guy. I don't feel like he wants to be here at all.
I just ask the court to consider that in sentencing.
Thank you, Mr. Stratton. Ms. Jessica Groves, anything you would like to say before I impose sentence?
I'm just so very sorry. No matter what you do to me, you can never do what I will do with myself. What I have to live with for the rest of my life, knowing that I did this to my child. I failed as a mother.
You did not fail as a mother. You obliterated what it means to be a mother. This is disgusting. This is not what God intended. This is not what God calls women to do when he's describing what mothers should be. What happened to, Psalm 127:3, I believe. It's either 3 or 8. I get them mixed up. Behold, children are a heritage from the Lord, the fruit of the womb. What happened to that? That doesn't just change. This woman is not anything of what it means to be a mother. And it makes me sad. I'm sad for her because now she gets to live with the mistakes that she made because she couldn't, again, keep her nose out of cocaine to actually do the right thing and do exactly what she claims to have done and love her children. If she truly wanted what was best for her kids and for them to have a loving home and wanting to protect them, she never would have let herself fall back into drugs the 6, 7, 8 times she went to rehab. Now, don't take this out of context. I have compassion for addictions. I do. There's, biological factors and all this fun stuff when it comes to having an addiction. It rewires your brain. I understand that. However, as a parent, your duty is to put your kids above yourself, and that includes wanting to go and snort cocaine. That includes wanting to go out and party all the time. That includes being like, oh, you know what? I want to go get drunk tonight and totally neglect my duty as a parent. That you set yourself lower than your kids. That's just what you're supposed to do. You're called to support and love the being that God knitted in your womb, like it says in Psalm 139. I get it that there are people in this world that aren't Christians. I don't know how people get up in the morning if you're not a Christian. I personally would not. I know that I make mistakes. I know I'm a sinful human being, and that's why I need a savior. And I don't know how this woman does it. I don't. Going through this and not being a follower of Christ, I can't imagine.
I'm sorry.
Anything else you'd like to say? You can be seated.
Alright, that's pretty much all of the sentencing video that I wanted to watch. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to read what the sentence was. Just so that we all have that in our heads going into the reaction for it. Okay, so the verdict for Jessica Groves, the sentence for her. 1. Life without parole for count 1 aggravated murder. 10 years for count 3 kidnapping. 36 months for count 4 endangering children. 36 months for count 5 tampering with evidence. 12 months for count 7 gross abuse of a corpse. 8 years for count 8 felonious assault. And 8 years for count 9 of felonious assault. So she got life in prison without the possibility of parole plus the 32 years. And that's what I love about life sentences and then other things being added on to that. Because they're already going to prison till the day they die. Anything after that is just showing the world. It's teaching people a lesson. Being like, see, this is just based on principle now. Now you're going to live out your punishment whether you like it or not. But this is how much worse we think it should have been. We think that you should be in prison for 32 years more than your life because of the heinous act that you committed. I love that. I think that that is justice served right there. The verdict for Daniel, it was basically the same thing minus the aggravated murder. Because for Jessica Groves, they merged count 1 aggravated murder, count 2 murder, and count 11 of felonious assault together. But for Daniel, it was pretty much the same thing, except for he was guilty of murder in violation of I don't know what this means. I'm not a lawyer, but RC 2903.02B. So lawyers, have fun. I don't know what that means, but that's what it says. It says it's an unclassified felony. But they pretty much had the exact same charges, taking the aggravated murder to the side because they did not find that he actually participated in the murder. So let's jump to the verdict. And I didn't write a timestamp down on this one, but bear with me. Oh wait, I actually remember my timestamps. I'm just that good. Yay, ad!
Good afternoon.
We won the project.
No way.
Yes, they want us to send over the scope, team, and
To be used as part of the court record. The case of State of Ohio versus Daniel Groves, case number 19 CR 586A. Jury has returned their verdict. Jury is to count 1, aggravated murder. We, the jury, having been duly impaneled, find the defendant Daniel A. Groves not guilty of count 1 of the indictment, aggravated murder, a violation of Ohio Revised Code section 2903.01 CFA, being an unclassified felony. As to count 2, murder. The jury has found, we, the jury, having been duly impaneled, further find beyond a reasonable doubt the defendant Daniel A. Groves guilty of count 2 of the indictment, murder, a violation of Ohio Revised Code section 2903.02B DB, an unclassified felony. As to count 3, the jury has returned their verdict. We, the jury, having been duly impaneled, find beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant, Daniel A. Groves, guilty of count 3 of the indictment, kidnapping, in violation of Revised Code section 2905.
I don't understand from them. Like, they look totally zoned out. They look like they're on a totally, like, another planet right now. I can't even put myself in that situation because I would never do what they did. But I feel like I'd have a little bit more emotion for going to jail for the rest of my life and then some.
5.01A5C1 being a felony of the first degree. As to count 4, juries return their verdict. We, the jury, have been duly impaneled, find beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant Daniel A. Groves guilty of count 4 of the indictment, endangering children, a violation of Revised Code section 2919.22 A E2C, being a felony of the third degree. We, the jury, having found the defendant guilty, further find beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant's violation did result in serious physical harm to Dylan Groves.
Okay, I mean, seriously, their expressions haven't changed. Like, am I wrong? Please put in the chat how you think that they should have reacted to finding out that they're spending their life in prison. Because I feel like people should be responding more. I don't understand the lack of response from these two. But okay, well, we're gonna skip ahead a little bit to see her reaction to hers. Let me pause actually for a second and read this. Thank you, Luke. That was much appreciated. And just so that it's in the stream, unclassified felonies in Ohio are the most serious felonies that carry a required prison sentence. They're called that because they don't fall into a traditional category, which is actually really great to know because I have an Ohio case that I'm actually researching for the end of this month. See, I get that they would be numb, but I'm also sitting here and I'm like, you... And this is the justice part in me that's like, no, you should have to suffer for what you did to the baby. They have no right to sit there and be numb. In my personal opinion, and I get I'm not a judge here or the jury, but they should suffer for what they did to that child. And I hope that they do. I hope that it stays in her mind. And some would say that's not Christ-like, but it's not Christ-like to kill your baby. and me sitting here doing this evaluation of them, and I am being as nice as I possibly can with not losing the intensity of the message that I want to share. What these two did is completely unacceptable, but I also know that God is a just God. He is a forgiving God, and if they truly came and repented, they would spend eternity in heaven. However, based on their actions here, I simply don't see that. But the Lord performs miracles, everybody, and I truly believe that, and I stand firm to that to this day, and will continue to do so. And I will sit here and I will pray for these people. I will pray for those who are in prison, and I hope that God gets to them. I really do. As horrible of the things that they've done, I do think that there is salvation in those, for those who are genuinely repentant and come crawling to Christ.
Being a felony of the second degree, as to count 11, the jury is found to be the jury having been duly impaneled, find beyond a reasonable doubt the defendant Daniel A. Groves guilty of count 11 of the indictment, felonious assault in violation of revised code section 2903.11 A1 and D1A, being a felony of the second degree. As to the case of State of Ohio versus Jessica Groves, case number 19 CR 586B, the jury has, to count 1 of the indictment, charge aggravated murder. The jury is found, we the jury, having been duly impaneled, find beyond a reasonable doubt the defendant Jessica Groves guilty of count 1 of the indictment, aggravated murder, a violation of revised code section 2903.01 C FA, being an unclassified felony. As to count 2 of the indictment, the jury is found, we the jury, having been duly impaneled, find beyond a reasonable doubt the defendant Jessica Groves guilty of count 2 of the indictment, murder, a violation of revised code section 2903.02 BDB.
The lack of response is ridiculous. That's about all the testimony that we are going to be watching today, but I did want to leave it open so that we had space to, maybe I can answer a couple questions. If I did not get to testimony that would have answered those questions for you as we were going through this, I can personally answer them. I know this case very well. Honestly, I'm very passionate about it. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat and I can answer them right now. And as y'all are typing out your questions, I wanted to include here that one of the things that I appreciated that the prosecutors did throughout this whole case is when they were referring to baby Dylan in questions, I would say probably 90-95% of the time they said baby Dylan, because, and I think that that would be awesome because it's really great. I'm stuttering. Sorry. Gonna restart that. One of the things that the prosecutors did throughout the entire trial is they constantly referred to baby Dylan as baby Dylan. They didn't just say Dylan. They said baby Dylan. And that was to maintain that strong connection that this is a baby we're dealing with. We're not dealing with a 23-year-old adult in Wisconsin. We're not dealing with, this isn't a parricide case. This isn't a case of an explanation of what parricide is. Parricide is the murder of the parents by a child. And that can go for patricide or matricide there. But this isn't a case of that. This is a case of these people killing this baby. And it keeps that connection there that it is in fact a baby. I think that's part of why the defense team kept saying Dylan as well. They did the same thing. They kept saying Dylan. They did not refer to him as baby. They tried to stay as far away from that as they possibly could. As to not remind the jury that we're dealing with a 2-month-old baby. Because that would be invoking emotion. And according to the defense team, we should actually strike the entire testimony of the foster mother because it didn't go to fact. All it did was invoke emotion. And I'm sorry, you're not going to sit here and get a jury just purely based on facts, but if you had to, the facts in this case are plenty to convict these two. In my opinion, you have to have emotion in there somewhere because the jury, they're not robots, they're actual human beings. And if I was on that jury and all they gave me were facts, I would say that they killed that baby. But the emotion that brought in, I definitely think the emotion part is what got that 32 years over the life sentence. So we are going to wrap it up. This was a very successful stream. I will say that justice has been served, ladies and gentlemen, and please be on the lookout because I will be posting this video edited. I'm going to be editing that tomorrow morning, and I will be posting it by tomorrow night. I will also be posting a blog entry, if you will, on my website. Hopefully it'll be completely up by then, of my thoughts and my evaluations, all condensed into approximately 2 to 3 paragraphs. I'll be posting that on my website as well. And be on the lookout for next week. We are going to be getting super excited about this case. I have researched it a lot already. We are going to be getting into the Chandler Halderson case in Wisconsin. So be on the lookout for that video. Thank you so much for joining us and for your commentary. Loved interacting with everybody. Please keep that up.